So before getting into this video, I am going to be covering spoiler content. This is volume 17 and also talking about volume 18, speculations of where the story will go. This is many different angles. It isn't just my opinion, it's a multitude of different opinions, looking at many different angles of where the story could go. So the point of the video is to listen to the different ideas that I'm throwing out, and then you decide where you think the story is going to go and what you think would be best suited for how you envision the writer going down that direction. So of course, if you don't want spoilers, click off the video. Now, getting into the topic itself, why I do believe that Bell will save Freya is because of his nature. He is a very kind-hearted person. He's always trying to do the right thing. It's a funny saying I have, because it is basically just a Batman quote. He is the hero that the people need, not what the people want. And I know, again, cheesy quote from Batman, but it is very true, because you look at Hermes was trying to shape Bell to be a hero of what the people wanted, what he envisioned, and Bell defied that. And that very much follows back to the Xenos incident, because the people don't want someone that's going to help the Xenos, to protect the Xenos, because that isn't what the vision of a hero is. But Bell defied that, because Bell is going to be the hero that he wants to be, which is what the people need. They need a hero like that, that can do things that may not seem like the best interest, but will end up being better for the greater good in the long term. At least that's how I perceive how the story is going when it comes to Bell. And that's why there's this big internal conflict between Eyes and how she sees monsters and how the Loki familiar see monsters. So the overall point there is that Bell, in my opinion, is going to do what he believes is the right thing, not necessarily what others are perceiving. And because of what Freya has done in volume 17, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be out for blood because of what she's done. Because she cannot brainwash or control Bell's mind and warp it to how she wants, like charming him, and that is something we learned with the whole Ishtar incident, where she tried to charm Bell and it failed, and then learning about his first ever skill, that means he's immune. That again gives him the immunity from also Freya as well, which made her even want to crave him even more. So her ultimate solution to that problem was, instead of just charming him, she'd charm everyone else in the city and make them forget about him, and then of course just simply play the game of, oh, you've just got faulty memories, but oh, you've ran into an incident. And that is why I definitely think a lot of people aren't going to be particularly happy with Freya. But I think instead of booting her out and exiling her, I think they're going to go more down a more punishment system, and I think the guild will be the one to suggest it. And there's a multitude of reasons why I don't think they're just going to exile her. One, because at the end of the day, her familiar members are not going to be particularly happy if she does get exiled. They'll probably just rebel and end up leaving. They're not going to stick around out of the goodness of their heart. It's not like an Ishtar situation where a lot of the Amazon girls were just there to kind of make a living, find a partner, and at the end of the day, once Ishtar was gone, they kind of just went all their separate directions. It's the same with Apollo. Not many of their familiar members were that attached to the god or the goddess. But in Freya's situation, the familiar members are very much attached to Freya, and they're not going to be pleased if she ends up getting booted out, and again, they'll just happily follow. And that also accounts for her going to the heavens. They're just going to end up rebelling or leaving. At least that's how I perceive it. So I feel like the guild is going to want to try and go down the avenue of being like, okay, you've done the wrong thing. We're going to punish you severely, and we're going to make you follow through these guidelines, which they have done before, because they're going to want to keep her on board, because again, it would be another power vacuum, but also they're going to want to keep her along so that they can continue to dive deeper and deeper and deeper into the dungeons, because if there are issues that arise from the dungeon, they may need the Freya familiar members, and this will be good leverage. If something goes wrong, they can say, well, Freya, you've done the wrong, you need to do these things as punishment. That's how I think the guild's going to look at it. From other members that, again, have also been brainwashed, I'm sure certain other familiar members and gods and goddesses are not going to be pleased, but I think the guild will rein Freya in very heavily. But it then also comes down to Hestia. Hestia is not going to be happy that her favorite little boy has been stolen from her, but I think Bell will step in and say, I forgive her, and let's try and save her and try and come up with a compromise. And I think that's going to kind of be a little bit of a double life. I think Freya will be able to interact with Belle, but only as Sia. And again, this is just a crackpot theory. It may or may not turn out like this, and I don't think this is necessarily going to turn out in volume 18. I think there's going to be a big confrontation, some major stuff developing, and then maybe at the end of volume 18 or even 19 there'll be some compromise. But this is one of the ways I could see it going, is that Belle will come up with a compromise where she gets to live her dual life as Freya. She's got to do her own things, deal with the guild because of the punishment, her familiar members, all the obligations there, and then she can live a dual life as Sia, and as Sia she can interact with Belle, but only as a friend. And that's where it will become another one of the girls, part of the harem kind of situation, where you've got Lily, our fox girl, a couple of other individuals, you know, someone working at the guild, overseeing Belle's adventures, etc, etc. There's going to be a lot of back and forth, Hestia kind of keeping her at arm's length. At least that's one of the ways I can see it going down, that she'll be allowed to interact with Belle, but only in that capacity. And if she was to ever do anything like this again, then there would be massive repercussions. The other alternative could be that, yeah, she just gets thrown into the heavens, exiled or something like that, and then there's all chaos, and that could be a major plot point where there could be some major chaos that Eyes and Belle need to work together. But the in-between part is as well, because one thing also being noted is that Eyes does owe Freya a favor, and this is something that's in the side story for Eyes, is that Eyes went to Freya to ask a certain individual, a big burly man, for training to help train her to go into the dungeons deeper and deeper and deeper, and Freya of course has that little tick of the box to pull upon if she ever needs a favor. Now, she very much could pull on that favor and say, hey, you owe me, whether it's to stay out of the conflict, if there's ever, say, like a war game or some type of conflict between Hestia, Freya, and the familiar members, or if it's something like standing up for her, and maybe Eyes might go into bat and say, you know what, instead of sending her to the heavens, let's just give her a punishment. Maybe Eyes might step in and say, you know, let's play a little bit more favorable because Freya has that favor to call upon. There are many different ways that could also go down as well. But I think it's going to be very difficult for Freya to wiggle out of this unscathed because of the fact that she has decided to charm the entire city. And of course there are some people that have broken out of the immunity or just weren't affected that are now resisting. It is going to, again, weigh very heavily, but I think it's a very different situation because of how Apollo's situation worked out. Apollo went about it in a kind of a partial formal way where he did a declaration. They then went to the hall, they discussed it with other gods and goddesses, and then that's when Hermes picked out the war games. And so it was between other gods and goddesses. Belle wasn't there to kind of maybe full sympathy on Apollo and say, you know what, you're fine, just never interfere with us again, which I think Belle would have probably went down a little bit more of a softer route instead of full-on exile, but Hestia just isn't as kind. I think if it was just completely up to Hestia when it comes to Freya, I think maybe she would very much come up with a much more harsher punishment, but at the same time, maybe Hestia might go a little bit easier on Freya, being that they do have some kind of somewhat positive relationship, but at the same time there is a deep sense of betrayal there as well. So it could go either direction. It really depends upon how the author wants to put this out there and how he's going to allow certain characters to interfere in certain ways. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I may end up doing a follow-up video going over other ideas of where this could go. We will be getting volume 18 soon-ish, so I'll be definitely looking forward to reading that and discussing about where the story is going from that point of view. If there is, say, like a game where, a war game type situation where it's Freya's members versus Hestia's members, I do think there could be some type of push and shove that other familiar members may end up deciding to join Belle's side out of anger and frustration towards Freya, and maybe that's where Freya could call upon a favor and say, Eyes, you can't interfere, and then it might just only be certain other individuals from that familiar members that might end up helping, that are angry about the brainwashing, but Eyes can't interfere, which could end up making it harder. But then Eyes could find a loophole and train Bell even further, but just can't directly interfere. So there's a multitude of different ways. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Super excited for more DanMachi content. But of course, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.